So we are together for about an hour, and it's a very specific moment because it's the first webinar where we want to present a report that was prepared, started being prepared mid-December, and it's been ready for a few weeks, both in French and English. But it's a report for a project that lasted several years. So I won't say more. Brigitte and Elsa are here to present this report. I also want to say that this is the first moment when we can thank a team with Brigitte and Elsa and also other people. Susie is with us today. Many other people worked on this project, and it's very important to say that it is an important, fundamental step to listen to this presentation, our presentation of this family advocacy project. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for the interpreters. I hope that the booths are working, and thank you all those who reacted to this report to give us how it is felt when you read it or how it started to be implemented. So before we listen to Brigitte and Elsa, I suggest that we have a look at a small video made by the communication team at ATD International, and it will be online in the coming days. This is a small video in French, but it will be translated into English. And with this, we can discover in a few minutes what this project means. So I will share my screen and we'll watch this video together. Can you see it? So the video now. The system doesn't seem capable of carrying out at the same time both child protection and the fight against poverty and exclusion. Well, I don't have the strength to fight anymore. I know that my children are in foster care until they're 18, but I have the strength to fight for visitation rights at home. But you have to fight for such simple things in life, it's not fair. The desire for it to change, for it not to happen again from generation to generation. There can be no empowerment for the person concerned if there is no empowerment for the professionals. Building a future without poverty for children. And now this is in English, so you can listen to it in English directly.
In Belgium, France, the Netherlands, Poland, Spain, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom, young parents living in poverty formed groups to take up the challenge. Academics joined the research to explore the issues further with them. During the research, participants identified two main areas for change. First, the invisibilization of poverty, making the fight against poverty visible.
On nous dit qu'on est des parents négligents, alors qu'en fait, on est des parents qui luttons contre la pauvreté. Mais c'est pris comme de la négligence.
We neglect our children, but this is not neglect.
Training, not just for professionals, but for everyone concerned. Help and support that empowers people and transforming child protection institutions. The second change concerns the law. This entails improving compliance with and enforcement of both child protection rights and fundamental rights.
Les droits doivent donner du pouvoir à chacun.
The law must empower everybody to have power over their lives, their future. Making sure that these rights are respected for people living in poverty is very much struggle.
Access to the child protection file and to write their account in their own words, making placements truly temporary with the aim of reuniting the family, and a more balanced court hearing in which both parties are allowed to tell their side of the story. To learn more about these proposals and examples of best practice, please refer to our document, Building a Future Without Poverty for Children, Parents and Society Together.
Voilà, merci Inès et Héloïse qui ont travaillé sur ces vidéos.
Okay,
Et
thank you, Ines and Louise. They worked on this video. And now the floor is for Elsa or Brigitte. I don't know who is going to start. You will tell me. Thank you. They will speak French, so you can continue listening to this into English. Thank you, Pierre. I will start. So you saw in a few minutes the results of our work over 3 years, but we want to tell you more how we got to these proposals for change. This dynamics was born because there was a questioning from parents living in poverty, and they say, what are we doing wrong? Despite all our efforts, our children know the same poverty as us. Will our children inherit the fruit of our efforts, or will they continue living in poverty? To answer this, there were 7 countries proposing small groups of parents, young parents more specifically, that works together to answer this question. And very quickly, these parents said, yes, we're ready to talk about what we do for the future of our children, but it's a difficult topic. It's a very painful topic. We came up a lot of obstacles. There are failures and a lot of humiliation. And if we do it, if we dare talk, is for things to change for us, but for all other parents, all other children. So very quickly, this was the challenge of working until elaborating proposals for change. So this was a very strong challenge, being up to what parents and children expect, a future without poverty. So there were a group of young parents, they started to work on this, and some academics joined them. There were 8 of them, different disciplines, law, sociology, etc. And they accepted to confront their knowledge with the knowledge of parents, to be able to open this dialogue, finding the right words so that parents people understand what the real life is. And they helped us a lot all along this project. The first step was to respect this suffering, this pain, this personal pain. We started by asking them to write a narrative of their efforts so that their children don't know would come out of this poverty. So with these different narratives, we talked about accommodation, education, health, but very often we talked a lot about child protection policies. And this is not included in the different policies. Although parents living in poverty, they come up with this policy constantly, and it's very heavy. Parents are traumatized when they're dealing with child protection services, trauma over several generations. And after this more individual step, we wanted to move on to a collective step. And we asked the group to write a narrative for the whole group, a narrative that shows. And when our team listened to the different narratives, we were not surprised that everything was about child protection.
It was clear that there was an area where parents wanted change. They wanted a change in child protection. So that's where we worked on before we made the proposals. Once we received the stories from each group, we had to analyze them. It shouldn't be only about telling, it should be about analyzing. Why were we doing that? And in order to analyze those stories, we used the help of the research of the Oxford University. And we noticed that this research was powerful. This allowed parents to give a name to everything that's labeled under poverty. The suffering, the impossibility to be able to act, the material privation, the physical, social, institutional abuse. And we were able to notice that in any countries with a diversity of child protection system, that there were common things. We asked people to analyze the different stories and then to analyze the stories of other countries. And then we allowed meetings between two groups, between two countries, and this allowed those groups to exchange the analysis. And in this area, academics helped us a lot. They helped us find our common grounds. And after those analyses, we had to find the roots, the causes, the deep causes of all this suffering, the deep causes of the impossibility to be able to act, the deep causes of abuse. And this work on causes, we try to group them into two categories, two areas where we have to work and we had to find proposals for change. And this is something our societies don't usually see. So the first area was that the poverty is not very well perceived. Poor families, poor parents are seen as incapable of doing things, but they are not visible actually. And that leads to a misunderstanding between parents and child protection services. There was another area where we had to make progress. That was the area of law. Children's fundamental rights don't seem to be a priority. So parents see that sometimes their rights are not recognized, or sometimes those rights are recognized, but they are used against them. And so because of that, those parents are not listened to. So So because of these two areas, thanks to these two areas, the fight against poverty is visible again inside the child protection services. And so legal rights is an important issue that we talked about in order to improve child protection. And now we're going to talk about the proposals that were made, concrete things that were proposed. Elsa. Thank you, Brigitte. Hello, everybody. We worked on those two areas, the invisibilization of poverty and the rights to child protection. And thanks to these two areas, we have several proposals. Regarding the invisibilization of poverty, there are three main proposals, and all those proposals, whether it be regarding the invisibilization of poverty or the rights to child protection, those things are linked. You could see that in the reports. There's an image that shows all those proposals. Yes, there is also an English version. So yeah, there's an English version that you could look at. So regarding the invisibilization of poverty, there was a first workshop that worked on training. That's something we talked about in all workshops. So training contains three proposals. First of all, the idea that professionals have to be trained, social workers, judges, families, etc. They have to be trained to what is high poverty. So we talked about two tools. The crossing of knowledge, and also the tool on the hidden dimensions of poverty. There was another aspect about training, the training to be able to talk with media. So on the way we give this information, how do we talk about poverty in order not to talk about it in a negative way? For example, in the UK, activists in the UK have been trained so that they're able to talk with media, so that they can explain to the public that poverty is not due to neglect. And so there's another thing, a third thing for training. This is the training for parents. Parents have 2 years in order to have a training, in order to have a common understanding of what they're living. They have to know what their rights are. They have to know how the institutions are working. And this would allow the creation of collectives of parents. And this idea showed up in several workshops. So that was the first proposal regarding training linked to the invisibilization of poverty. The second thing, sorry, I'm hearing another person on my headset. So the support service, it gives it willing to work together. So behind this change of words, we're asking for a change in the system, a new system that would create again a collaboration between the institution, the parents, and the children. So in order to reestablish the educative collaborations, parents reflected on created counterpowers. So in these counterpowers, there was the creation of an independent commission to deal with bad relations between professionals, parents, and children. There's the creation of an organism of control. And there's also the creation of parents groups. You can see that this is linked to our first proposals. And this allows a better access to justice. And this name change of child protection will only be possible if there's an evaluation of institution, and it has to be done with the parents and children. And the next proposal regarding the invisibilization of poverty is linked to the support, a support that really works on the power to act for parents. Parents explained a lot that parents and children should be at the heart of the way this is conceived. So they wanted to underline that we need to work together. Parents were saying that they wanted to remain the pilots, and social services educators should be co-pilots, but we as parents are the pilots. And this support should be a source of freedom and not a source of dependence. So in this proposal, you see there are examples of best practice and that you can get inspiration from. So that was the first area on the invisibilization of poverty. And the second area was linked to the law and the rights of child protection. The child protection file should be a file that contains the history of the child. At the moment, this file contains documents that are written by the institution, and this shows the way the institution sees the child's case. So once the child is over 18, there's no track of what the child was when he was a child. So this file should include also contribution by the parents. And parents should also be able to talk about the positive aspects of the child so that the child is proud of their own history. So with this new way of writing a file, the file is more complete. And when the judge analyzes the file, he has another point of view of the situation. So the child protection file should be about the history of the child. Second aspect is about the contradictory debate. When there's a debate with the judge, this should be a balanced debate. There's an emotional imbalance. There's the stress of not knowing what is going out of this procedure. And after social workers speak, parents have to speak, but there's an emotional imbalance. They're sometimes not able to talk, to say what they want to say. And so in the proposals, the idea is to send all the elements in advance so that people can be prepared. And in order to do something against this imbalance, the idea of the proposal is to give the possibility to have someone to assist you in the procedure. and to state all the rights in the file. And a third aspect, the placement should be temporary. According to the European Court of Human Rights, this placement should be temporary. So when there's no danger anymore, this placement should be stopped. And the final definitive goal is to have a reunion that children and parents should be reunited. But sometimes all this procedure is long and it goes until children are 18. And so parents identify two main causes. They they reflected on the rights to visit. Those visits are supervised and very much controlled by the social services. And there's no support to parents when children are on foster families. Sometimes children are in foster families and the parents have to deal with the other things, but they are not receiving any help, any support to resolve these other things. So there's also another proposal that this right to visit should be also evaluated. So that's what we talked about. And in the report that you received in the chat, there are more details. And there's also a part on reflection made by the team, a general reflection on the coordination team that talked about the democratization of child protection, and the idea also the subject of fathers, which we didn't talk about, but which is also very interesting. So that's the whole advocacy. Those are the proposals, and now we have to implement them. And now I'm giving the floor to Mariette. She is going to talk about what they did in Bretagne.
So this is it. Thank you, Elsa. Thank you, Brigitte. As you could hear, the links are in the chat. The report also exists here on paper, but now the challenge is to carry on, to continue. And there are people who've read this report, and there's Mariette and her friend from Brittany who will tell us their story. We're listening to you. So hello, everybody. I'm Mariette. I'm Marie. We didn't have time to get this preparation right, but since November 2023, we intervened with professionals and also with a politician. With professionals, that was much easier than with politicians, because the professionals in our region, some followed some training courses. One had already worked with ATD for earthworks in the region, but also at the national level, she came to Montreuil. The first thing that we did the parents pushed us a lot for us to react quickly. And the first thing that we thought of was a debate, starting with the film of Karine Lampion to see how we present this. So there are things that work well, others not so well, but activists, they presented their proposals. So that was the first step. Then we also met the responsible for lawyers in Brest because the activists wanted to work with the judge for children. But we didn't know how to get in touch with the child protection judge. But this lawyer knew the judge very well. So we presented our proposals to that person. So they welcomed us. Very good welcome. And she agreed with us with all our observations. And for example, when we were talking about a lack of support from professionals for the parent, she totally agreed that there were not many means allocated by the bodies. And in the renewal of placements, because there are placements which we think are too long, but she said that judge several times, every time there was the renewal, the judge mentioned the risks, which mean that there were less that were accepted. Then we met the person responsible for the region, responsible for all the children placed in foster. There are 920 children that they look after. So this new person responsible for the region, that person comes from the north of France. The first time that we met in September, we saw that she was ready to leave room for parents. And when we met her, we could feel that she was listening openly with the professional, a lot of questions to the parents to ask them how they could see this implemented. And the activist came out saying, we have the feeling that we're being listened to. And many themes were mentioned, and with real problem, relationships with professionals. And we proposed to work co-building with ATD activists to think about what are the questions that should be asked during the evaluation time to get to the highlighting a situation. Is there a danger or not? So there were very precise questions, not only a global impression, the personal impression of a professional. So we need to work more on it, but the activists were really ready to take part in it. And to finish with, they invited us to present this in a week's time with 120 professionals in the about evaluation of race, the reference people, etc. So this was the best encounter, the most constructive one, so that things change. We also met the vice president of the regional body, and this was more directly politically. Well, obviously, she wanted to resolve individual situation. She didn't really think about the collective aspect, and she wanted to let people talk about their personal experience, which was not very easy. So the options of the department, what happens to siblings, etc. So the activists were a bit disappointed. We were also disappointed. Well, thank you very much. It gives us an idea how locally you can have meetings. We understood that next Friday you have an important meeting. It gives us ideas to other people, and it invites us all. Yes, let's meet people locally. So thank you very much. Now we will have some echoes from people who either took part in an important moment with Evgenia from Sofia. She's going to speak English, and two-person working in poverty, child protection, Hugh Fraser from Ireland, and Jana Hastesworth from Brussels, and they will also say a few words about what they think of this report. Evgenia, are you with us? The floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you, Pierre. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here and for the opportunity to be part of the Family Advocacy Project. And I really hope that the research findings and proposal will reach wide audience across Europe and elsewhere, where already traditional Western type child protection systems are in place and cause harm to people in vulnerable situations, parents and children alike, instead of providing support and bringing about justice. So there is a lot of space for improvement, and I can see the way forward outlined in the report from the Family Advocacy Project, which is very, very important for me. As Pierre mentioned, I'm coming from Bulgaria. I'm working as a researcher here. And while I was reading the report, I thought that the situation in Bulgaria is different, but well, not that different, or it is because the context is different. But the way the child protection system functions is pretty much the same, and it does the same harm as it is in the other countries participating in the Family Advocacy Project. And if we just look at the two general clusters of proposals for change in the report that were presented just now, we will find that most of the issues and the ideas for change are completely irrelevant to the child protection practice in Bulgaria. And when the first cluster of issues is concerned, the need to make poverty visible, I can say that the unreflected institutional abuse suffered by people living in poverty and marginalization here is a matter of fact. And I've been working with these issues for 10 years now, and I'm absolutely sure about that. So in the most recent study of the Know-How Center where I work, about the factors and reasons for family separation in the country, we've seen that in the child protection system, very little is going on outside the realm of poverty and marginalization. So what does this mean? Well, an extensive analysis of cases that we performed shows that almost all children and parents who are somehow involved with the child protection system have this background of living in poverty and marginalization. This analysis also shows that when different factors combine to lead to decisions for family separation here, the factor bearing the most weight is whether or not the family is living in unsafe and unstable conditions due to poverty. So in these cases, the child is often thought as being saved from harm by being removed from this environment and placed in alternative care. And what is super important for me to know is that this analysis is done by field level specialists, social workers from various social services across the country, working directly with children and family and supported by researchers from our center. And At that time, there is no official data whatsoever gathered by the government or any of its agencies in Bulgaria about the number of children being placed in care for the reason of poverty, or any data concerning the social, economical, or ethnical background of the parents whose children end up in care. So this lack of data very conveniently, very well facilitates the invisibility of poverty that the report is highlighting. And for the second cluster of issues that concern the legal area of child protection, again, it is a matter of fact that existing legislation and institutional practices in Bulgaria tend to weaken the bonds between children and their parents. And I would say that in this area, the situation in Bulgaria is even worse than elsewhere is in Europe, because there is already a body of research evidence showing that once a child in Bulgaria is placed into alternative care, his or her interaction with the family's member is not encouraged at all anymore. It is rather discouraged on the basis of the belief that once saved from this harmful environment at home, the child is given a chance for a better life, social integration, and life outside poverty, which importantly excludes parents, or rather includes breaking up with the family and their way of living. So this is why the history of the child so often gets lost in the files, and the perspective of the parents of this history is simply being dismissed completely. So, having said that, I welcome the proposal for including people living in poverty as trainers in programs for child protection workers and also workers from social services. And I also welcome the proposal for training for parents to understand how the system works and what are their rights. And as a whole, I welcome any step towards including people living in poverty in this conversation about child protection issues. This is not happening here in Bulgaria, and it is badly needed for the sake of overcoming this invisibility and the well-embedded harmful, as we saw, beliefs and prejudice around poverty. And I would like to mention something else. I think a significant push of this will be given in October this year, when in Sofia, the conference of the International Step by Step Association, we'll have Professor Andy Bilson and Talia Drake from the UK, who are very well known to the ATD. And they will be giving a workshop speaking about their experience with parental activism to the Bulgarian audience. And I hope that in this way, by joining forces, we can really achieve this important social change for parents and children that we are talking about. And I totally agree that this is a matter of democratization of the child protection system, as it was said.
Thank you very much, Evgenia. And this is a good news, because the participants to the family project, you talked about Tanya, I didn't hear the other name, and they were with us last time with the family project. So you will have them in Sofia in Bulgaria in October. And now I give the floor to you, Fraser. Hugh is a friend of ATD, is member of the board of directors of ATD Ireland, and he's also someone who worked a lot on the measure inside the different measure of the European Union, which is the children guarantee. So I will ask him to give us a few hints on the report. So this measure by the European Union. So you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Pierre, and thank you for the invitation to join you today. I think first, could I just say congratulations on a really important piece of work. I think what it does, it ensures the voice of those who aren't heard sufficiently when we're talking about poverty, that is, parents in extreme poverty, are heard and listened to. And I think the report makes some very concrete and very practical recommendations, both on policy and on practice. And I think, therefore, it's a very useful report and a very timely report. As Pierre said, I've been asked just to say a little bit about the relevance of this report to the implementation of the European Child Guarantee. For those of you who maybe don't know much about the Child Guarantee, just to remind you that under the Child Guarantee, member states are recommended to guarantee for children in need effective and free access to high-quality early childhood education and care, education and school-based activities, at least one healthy meal each school day, and healthcare, and effective access to healthy nutrition and adequate housing. And member states have been required to develop national action plans to achieve these objectives, which are currently being implemented. So what I want to say is a bit about how your report is relevant to the European Child Guarantee. There are a lot of things that I could be covering, but I'll just limit myself to 7 points. First of all, the European Child Guarantee, its objective is to try and end poverty and to end and break the intergenerational cycles of poverty. And your report is very much about the same subject. It's about addressing the concerns that parents have that the cycle of poverty is not repeated with their children and their children's children. So it is addressing the same issue. Well, what I'll do, I won't go back over what I've said because the time is tight, but I'll just maybe make the 7 points that I was going to make about why what you have produced is highly relevant to the European Child Guarantee. The first is the Child Guarantee says that it's about ending poverty, and in particular, it mentions breaking the intergenerational cycles of poverty. And it seems to me that's the starting point for your report. Parents' concerns that the cycle of poverty shouldn't be repeated for their children, and then I guess from their children's children. I think the second thing I would say is that if the Child Guarantee is going to work, it has to address the actual obstacles that stop parents benefiting from the services and supports that they have a right to benefit from. And this means making the reality that's faced by families and by children understood within the system. And by focusing on what you call the invisibilization of poverty, I think you're very much addressing this issue about what are the specific blocks and barriers that need to be overcome if the Child Guarantee is going to be successful. Third point is about participation. The Child Guarantee emphasizes the participation of children and stakeholders in the preparation, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of national action plans. Your report makes it very clear that parents must be recognized as key stakeholders, that they should be key stakeholders in that part of the process. And I think you make very about what is needed, both in terms of support for parents, but also in terms of the training of people working with families to ensure that participation is genuine and happens. And I think that is very useful guidance for people who will be implementing the European Child Guarantee. Fourth point is the Child Guarantee gives a particular emphasis on children experiencing specific disadvantages. And in doing so, it names children in alternative, especially institutional care, and children in precarious family situations. Clearly, this is the core focus of your report, are these children and their families and parents. So it is extremely relevant to that objective of the Child Guarantee and should be extremely useful to people working on those issues. My fifth point is about multidimensional support for families and children. One of the, I think, positive things about the European Child Guarantee, it emphasizes the need for an enabling policy framework supporting children and families in an integrated manner across a range of policy areas. I very much picked up from your report of parents talking about the need to develop proposals that would ensure the rights to housing, work, health, and education. Those are specifically mentioned in your report. So again, your experience is emphasizing the multitude of different policy areas and actions that need to be supporting parents. And I think that's very much in keeping with the Child Guarantee. Another feature of the European Child Guarantee is an emphasis on early prevention, early intervention, prevention, and support to parents. And it talks about developing effective outreach measures towards children in need and their families. You very much address the need to support parents from an early stage and to prevent institutional care. And I think you have some very important messages how that support should be developed in a much more integrated and partnership way. So I think, again, that's very important learning for people who will be trying to implement this part of the Child Guarantee. And then the seventh point I wanted to make, and the last point, is the importance of partnership, cooperation between all the different actors, and particularly between professionals who are meant to be working in the field and families. And I think your report highlights the need for training and awareness raising amongst professionals, and that needs to be part of it. It's not just enough to have policies. You've got to look at how to deliver by people in ways that are delivered in partnership with parents, so there is a much more equal relationship developed. And again, I think you have very practical suggestions. So for all these reasons, and indeed for many others that there isn't time to go into, I would say your report is extremely relevant to the Child Guarantee. And I think everybody who's responsible for implementing the Child Guarantee in different countries should undoubtedly be encouraged to read it, to talk to people involved in producing it, and to learn from it. So thank you very much for an excellent report.
Thank you very much. You are giving us leads so that we can work with the teams that are in charge of the coordination of the Children Guarantee in the European Union. So thank you very much for reading our report so closely. And so we are very happy to hear that people should use this report in order to put forward the Children Guarantee in the European Union. And now I'm giving the floor to Jana. She is going to work to support the child protection policies in the European Union. And in the past, she has been an activist for child rights. She was the General Secretary of Eurochild.
Very much, Pierre, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this discussion and celebrating the report that has recently been launched. And I hope really that the echoes will be heard for long after this event and in the years to come. It's a very critical time, as you're all aware, of change at the level of the European Union, which is where I've been working. Firstly, I just wanted to really acknowledge the work, particularly of the parents experiencing poverty with academics in sharing their direct experience and the courage that shows, having been through often very traumatic experiences. And I think, as was explained in the presentation, the commitment that takes, the courage, and what we heard was that they are doing it because they believe in the change that their voices, that telling their stories will bring. So as I hear the experience of those people sharing with academics and bringing that to the fore, I think about the many, many thousands of parents that are not heard, that are ignored. And I'm hoping that these stories, as they are heard, will create much greater sensitivity and acknowledgement that we do not change a system without directly involving and hearing the people that have been hurt by that system in order to bring about change. So really to acknowledge all of the people directly involved in sharing their experiences and hoping that this brings about a significant shift in mentality of how we not only implement practice, but also change policies. So as Pierre said, I spent many years as Secretary General of Eurochild, an organization which advocates for children's rights in Europe and had been working, continues to work on the priority of tackling child poverty, and was one of the key players in advocating for the European Child Guarantee that Hugh very clearly presented. And there's no doubt that that was a major breakthrough and provides a very strong political and policy platform on which to reform and invest more in prevention. But one of the frustrations in our sector has been and continues to be the disconnect between the narrative of tackling child poverty and child protection reform. And I think you very clearly articulated that in the introduction to this project, that they seem to happen in very parallel silos. Now, through the Child Guarantee, there is a specific target group on children in alternative care, children who are placed, and particularly focusing on ending institutional care and ensuring that children grow up in families. But that intersection of how we are preventing family separation by really integrating the perspective of people who are experiencing very severe material deprivation, perhaps intergenerational inheritance of trauma, of discrimination. One of the areas that I'm sure Eugenia is very much working on is the overrepresentation of Roma in the child protection system across Europe, but particularly in Eastern Europe, but very much a consequence of inherited trauma, separation, segregation. And I think there's important work there to be done about bringing those views, that experience, and really recognizing how to go back into the root causes of separation and exclusion in our societies. There's no doubt that socioeconomic circumstance is a primary driver of child separation, and it perpetuates trauma. And also what we see is pretty much universally, the outcomes for children who have grown up in care are poor. So we're perpetuating a system that uses significant amounts of public money, produces negative outcomes, and reproduces institutional harm and discrimination. So in addition to the Child Guarantee, which I agree is a very important platform through which to influence and improve and increase the public investment in prevention and tackling poverty, I think there's another instrument which was launched in spring this year by the European Commission, which is the recommendation on integrated child protection systems. And as I read through that recommendation, I think there is still significant work for us to do to really raise awareness and sensitize people in power, people who are designing policies and setting those priorities, to think through the perspective of parents as partners in helping prevent family separation. And it's not sufficiently developed in that recommendation, although there are many references, I think, to the work of ATD Fourth World and others in their staff working document, so that whole analysis that goes behind it, but it's not captured sufficiently well in the recommendation. So this is the area that I'm starting to work on now. I've been informing the influencing strategy of an initiative called Tanya's Dream Fund. It is specifically targeted at preventing family separation in Bulgaria, but they recognize that the issue of poverty as a driver of family separation is a common across Europe, that there is a need for a vibrant movement, including professionals, academics, and the people and parents themselves in driving that change. And I very much hope to be a part of that. And I believe that this particular report and the recommendations that have come from it are providing some very, very concrete tools with which we can now advocate towards the new institutions at the European Union level, and then how that gets translated down into different EU member states. So I'm hoping with this bottom up and top down influencing and partnership that we can create together, we have some tools at our disposals to change the system. So thank you very much for involving me, and I wish this study every success in getting out there.
Merci beaucoup, Jana. Voilà.
Thank you very much, Jana. So we had different voices from Brussels, from Ireland, from Sofia, from France, to say to us that this document made by the Family Advocacy Project is crucial now in today's world, with also what Jana said, the new recommendation of the EU about the integrated system of child protection. We invited you to a webinar just for lunchtime. Now it's 2:05. Lunchtime break is nearly over. We will go back to our different commitments, but this was a moment to say that this report does exist, it's available, and we can create conversations from now. We will not start exchanges with you. We're a bit late, but what is obvious is that we want to continue moments like this online. Sometimes it will be public, sometimes it will be just with us. But this report, you can add other reports from ATD, the Swiss report. Maybe you cannot see it. We should see it on screen. Well, there is a Spanish report published at the beginning of the year. There will be a report by ATD France, and all these reports agree on fundamental questions that we've just mentioned. We have a European mobilization that should be created with different stakeholders so that things change, that the system changes, like Jana called for at the end of our presentation. So I want to thank you. There were more than 60 of us together, maybe many more. We cannot see everybody. There are people from ATD, but I also want to thank other stakeholders, those in the responsive project, a European project. We'll hear about it more in the coming year. And I want to say once again, big thank you to this team of the Family Advocacy Project, who worked hard for 4 years, through a process that helps us today to have this very important report for ATD. Yes, a round of applause or little signs for Elsa, Brigitte, Susie, others. But I will stop here because there are many people involved. And I also want to thank again, and I will start to share my screen. Thank you again for our interpreter friends who, with us, they enable us to keep our links, to speak together, to listen to each other. Maybe you haven't identified them with us. Anne-Marie and Benoit for the English, and Shiska and Florencia for Spanish, and Sonia and Marie-Rose for German. And sorry for the technical problems because we didn't get it right for the German. The other languages were all right. I don't want to forget anything. Don't hesitate to tell me if I'm forgetting something important. So thank you, Marie-Mariette from Brittany, Sophia, Evgenia, Hugh, Yana. Anything else? I can see faces from Germany, from Switzerland, from the UK, Belgium. I think Europe was with us. Thank you, all of you, for this webinar. The reports are in the chat if you want the link. Thank you for your comments. And now we're mobilized to continue together. I see Tish from Great Britain. It would be too long to mention everybody. Have a nice day and talk to you very soon to talk about what will follow. Thank you very much and bye-bye.